So there is the banner, the Ricciardo kart banner. Of course, Daniel Ricciardo branding these all these chassis, part of the Birrell ART family of karts. But the Ricciardo team racing in all forms of karting around the world, and this is his own series, the only one like it in the world, and he keeps a keen interest. And we can see there an overview of the start-finish line here at Shenington, and the Blue Skies are doing their very best to fight their way through the dark clouds. And you can just see the different colour of the tarmac there on the racing line. You can see actually the tarmac is darker. Well, that shows that it's drying out ever so slightly. On the outside of the circuit, obviously still very, very slippery indeed. All the drivers that are going out next in the DRS125 class will be on wet tyres. There is your pole man, number 285, David Darling. And David is currently 15th in the championship. He'll be starting alongside the number 291 kart of Lewis Berry, and Berry 13th in the championship. So these grids are drawn at random. Now there are no rookies in this class. There's Lewis, and he'll be starting on the outside of row number 1. Tyrone Stansfield, Ty Stansfield in kart number 6, third in the championship so far. 2 top 6 finishes in the finals, the opening 2 rounds of the season. 16-year-old from Braintree in Essex. He's a rock gazer. On the outside of row number 2, number 298, Carl Watt, who will be looking to try and improve on 14th place in the overall standings here this weekend. And I see Carl, one of the more senior drivers in the 125 class. Then there's number 279 kart, starting from 5th on the grid, Elliot Stanley. Elliot, newcomer to the championship this weekend. He's not a rookie because he's raced in the series before, but he is making his seasonal debut here today. And there's, slick tyres. We've got a gambler. Well, number 298, Carl Watt, has thrown his hat into the ring and said, right, well, let's go. So it's either going to be, quite literally, it's going to be win it or bin it now for Carl Watt, because watch him go backwards at the start. The sun is shining through now. Of course, yesterday, the practice session started very wet indeed, but then they did dry out, and when the circuit did start to dry, it dried very, very quickly indeed. Carl Watt's going to be hoping it's going to be drying in the next 8 minutes or so. 281, that's George Friday. He's starting on the outside of row 3 alongside Elliot Stanley, and George is one of the more experienced drivers in the championship, 9th overall at the moment. There's the number 2 kart, Richard Evans. So Richard, he was 2nd in the opening round of the championship at Clay Pigeon, missed Glenagorse. So he's only 20th in the standings, but of course that's not indicative of his pace. He'll be looking to make a move up the order as well. And another driver on slick tyres is number 247, Mantas Zeromskas. Mantas, who has experienced race, took a few years out of karting, has now come back this season. So Mantas, the gold boots on, hoping that those slick tyres come good before the end of the race. On number 301 is next on the grid, Zach Parkinson. Zach Parkinson starting 9th in kart 301 alongside the number 302 kart of Morgan Cole. Morgan Cole on wet tyres, another driver on wet tyres. So most of the front, 8 out of the top 10 starters on wet tyres. Here's the championship leader and defending champion, Sam Faulkner. Now 19 years old, he's been in this championship in its many guises for several years now. And Sam starting 11th in kart number 1. Thomas Massarella on the outside of row 6, kart number 8. He starts 12th on wet tyres. On row number 7, James Lay in kart number 306 begins this race on wet tyres. And one of 2 Lay brothers in the race. And on slick tyres, 3rd gambler, Matthew Pierce in kart number 4. He's got the Union flag, the English flag and the Irish flag on his crash helmet. Row number 8, Paul Ozan, the leading Grandmaster driver in the championship, the 47-year-old from Stoke-on-Trent, who had some brake issues yesterday. And number 308, Corey Elaine, both on wet tyres. Number 240, Will Chackley, is the 4th driver to go out on slicks. He starts 17th. Alongside driver number 230, Mark Lawrence, another one of the Grandmasters on wet tyres. And at the back of the field, number 175, that's Patrick Lay. Patrick Lay on wet. So we got 4 drivers on slicks. Watt, Zaromskas, Pierce, and Jackley. Oh, there's a problem there at the start for one of the drivers up near the front. That could be Lewis Berry. Lewis Berry, the second place starter. And as they head out onto the circuit, you can see no more spray being kicked up, but you can look, there are still puddles on the inside line. So the drivers on slick tyres, they are going to have their work cut out just to stay on the track. Lewis Berry with a few issues there getting started on the outside of row number 1 in the 291 kart. So the rest of the field are on their outlap, but there's some frantic efforts to get that number 291 machine started. And you can see members of the DRS team all working around the kart, as well as Lewis's mechanic, to make sure to see if that kart can get started so we can get him in the race. And all credit to the officials for leaving the grid gate open to give him time. While the drivers on wet tyres are thinking, no, don't give him time. Don't give him time. It's going to be another rolling lap, so we're going to have a second rolling lap. The track is drying out every second. There's now bright sunshine over the circuit. Here's the grid. Darling and Berry. Well, hopefully, Darling and Berry on row 1. Stansfield and Watt. So Carl Watt, if Berry doesn't get started, Carl Watt will be on the front row of the grid on slick tyres with nearly 20 scrabbling, rabid 125 drivers on wet tyres behind him. So I hope he brought a spare pair of pants just in case. Stanley and Friday on row 3. Evans and Zaromskas on row 4. Row 5, Parkinson and Cole. Row 6, Faulkner and Massarella. Row 7, Lay and Pierce. Row 8, Ozan and Elaine. Row 9, Chackley and Lawrence. Row 10, Patrick Lay. Berry still sits on the dummy grid. And look at those dry patches on the circuit. Now, the wet tyres are going to start overheating very quickly. Lights are red. They come to the line. 18 drivers. The lights stay red. It's a false start. That green flag with the yellow chevron on it, that is the signal of a false start. And the sun's shining. These wet tyres are going to start overheating. We saw in the DRS100 race that already 1 or 2 drivers are moving off the racing line to try and coax some extra, to try and get the temperatures down. There's the number 287. Oh dear, they're dropping like flies. That is the number 281 kart, of George Friday. Man Friday down is the obvious and pretty poor joke that I will use anyway. But, and you can see there's the number 6 kart. Now that's not Tyrone Stansfield just trying to drive off the circuit for the sake of it. That's him trying to drive off the circuit to get on those wet tyres. You can see the poleman sticking to that wet line. He wants to stay off the dry track completely. I think the gamblers, well, watch Carl Watt in kart number 296 on slick tyres. He's hogging that dry line all the way around Wilkins. And he's going to move up onto what would be the front row. He's going to leave a space for Lewis Berry. They come to the line now. Lights are out. We're off and racing. And it's a good start from the poleman. Now the poleman, David Darling, has got to try and make hay while the sun shines, quite literally, because the drivers on slick tyres, when they get some temperature into them, as long as they can stay on track at these early critical laps, when they get some temperature into those slick tyres around most of the circuit, because there's a dry line around Stratford Hairpin, the slick tyres are going to be paying dividends. So the drivers in the wets have got to try and get away while they can into Bruno chicane. Everyone through the chicane safely at the moment. A couple of drivers at the back there, they're the ones on slicks that are now struggling, but it's Darling who leads. The number 8 kart of Thomas Massarella is in second. That's number 6, apologies. That's number 6 of Ty Stansfield second. Then it's the number 279 of Elliot Stanley into P3. We'll see where Carl Watt has dropped back to. Watt, Zaromskas. Well, Watt has come across the line in 13th. So, Zaromskas is 16th and Chackley is 17th. Into Stratford Hairpin. Darling, Stansfield, all the wet tyre drivers trying to get away as much as they can. We'll keep an eye on the drivers that are on slicks and their lap times in comparison once the race settles down. Ozan gets a warning. There's the number 230 of Mark Lawrence making a move into the Bruno chicane. It's Darling, Stansfield, Stanley, Richard Evans, then Faulkner. Good start from Sam Faulkner already from 11th up into 5th. And there's another move there as he passes the number 6 cart of Stansfield to move into P2. So Sam Faulkner, he's picking him up and putting him down. Here is the number 1 plate of Faulkner. He's onto the rear bumper of Darling. He dives to the inside, going to Cafe Corner. 11th to 1st in a lap and a half. Sam Faulkner has got his head down, but this is not going to be easy for Faulkner because he's already moving around. He's taking the defensive line, not because he's defending, as Stansfield picks up P2 from Darling. So Darling back to P3. So it's Faulkner from Stansfield. Oh no, and Darling fights back round the outside going into the Bruno chicane. Good stuff there from David Darling to keep Ty Stansfield at bay. Now, Will Checkley on slicks is in 15th place. Carl Watt, his best time last time on slick tyres, 49.847. The race leader, Sam Faulkner, did a 47.7. So there's only a second in it. Matthew Pearce, I believe, is on slicks as well in kart 4. And Pearce is up into 6th position with a 47.5. Fastest lap of the race for Matthew Pearce already. 5.5 minutes to go. And I believe Pearce is on slick tyres. Yes, so already. And you can see Pearce understeering into Stratford. That's going to lose him time. But he managed to hold on. Okay, now watch the number 4 kart of Matt Pearce there in the grey race suit. Watch him start to pick up the position. He's up the inside of Zach Parkinson. Is that? No, that is James Lay in the 306 kart. Can't make the move stick there though. That's Richard Evans in the other grey race suit in kart number 2. Evans to the inside. He makes a place up there. That is Pearce is up into P3. Pearce 46.67. Oh, Pearce is over a second quicker than the race leader. Sam Faulkner and David Darling running 1-2. Their time at the front is numbered. Pearce is coming like a freight train. There he goes up in a second through Pitts Bend. He's now hunting down the race leader. Stansfield, Evans, Lay, James Lay and Patrick Lay running together 6th and 7th. But here is Matt Pearce out of the Bruno chicane. He's closing in on Sam Faulkner. Slick tyres with 4.5 minutes to go are the way to go. Sun is shining. Carl Watt is at 13th. Zaromskas is 15th. Checkley is 12th. They're also on slicks. Watch for them to be making progress. Faulkner is going to be eaten for lunch now by Pearce. They come into Cafe Corner. But so Faulkner now, he wants to try and hold him up as much as possible. There's absolutely no competition there. Pearce sweeps through, coming out of Cafe Corner, takes the lead. Faulkner now has just got to try and hold on to second and make sure that none of the other slick tyre drivers come through in the final 3.5 minutes. There is Patrick Lay rather in kart number 175, following his brother James Lay. 5th and 6th, Zach Parkinson is next in kart 301. Those 3 karts battle through the Bruno chicane, with Evans in 8th, Ozar 9th, Checkley in kart 240. So Will Checkley is the next driver to be watching for on 6 tyres. Watt is 11th. Then it's Elliot Stanley 12th. Mantas Siromskas is 13th. Lawrence 14th. Cole 15th. Then Elaine and Massarella. So we've lost Thomas Massarella out of proceedings. Meanwhile, Pearce's lead in the space of a lap has grown to 1.5 seconds. This is the scrap now between Stansfield in the 6th, the 2 Lay brothers, and then Parkinson as they head down towards Stratford Straight, trying to close in on David Darling for 3rd place. So on your screen now, 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th. There goes James Lay in 306, and Patrick follows him through at Stratford. So Stansfield just runs. Stansfield bouncing up and down. A problem for Ty Stansfield. You can see him there struggling for power coming out of the corner. Let's watch as he comes out of the Bruno chicane. Does he lose any ground? Yes, you can see the gap opening up. So under acceleration, Ty Stansfield in kart number 6 in trouble. He's already dropped 3 places. He's down into 7th, and it's going to be Richard Evans closing in. He seems to be okay in the corners, but as soon as he tries to put the power down, that number 6 kart bogs down, and he's going to be swallowed up there by Richard Evans and Will Checkley. So Checkley has, there's a battle there between Parkinson and Patrick Lay going in through Cafe Corner. There's David Darling coming down towards Stratford. He still is in 3rd place. 4th place, the 175 at Patrick Lay, but he has to make way for Zach Parkinson, who moves through in the number 301 kart at Stratford. That's 5th and 6th. Look for the number 240 kart of Will Checkley. He's up into 9th place. He's in this group on your screen now, heading down the hanger straight. Checkley in the white crash helmet, the clear race suit. And we still look at Parkinson trying to work over Patrick Lay. There goes Checkley picking up a position. So Checkley goes past Evans. Oh, that's Stansfield rather. He goes past Stansfield. Stansfield in trouble. Stansfield with a problem. Checkley up into 8th place. How quickly can he get past this group? Oh, Lewis Berry, who did get started in kart number 2. No, that's number 298. Sorry, Berry didn't start. The 298 is Carl Watt. Oh, and Carl Watt on slick tyres takes a spin. So that's going to spoil him. But there's Parkinson at the inside of both Leys. Oh, great move there from Zach Parkinson. Sliding up the inside of James and Patrick Ley going into Stratford. James Ley trying to hang it out on the outside line going into the Bruno chicane, but he has to fall back in line. Parkinson up into 4th place. So it's Pierce who's leading by nearly 6 seconds from Faulkner, Darling, then Parkinson. James Ley and Patrick Ley are top 6. Evans 7th, but Will Checkley is now moving up. So Checkley passes Evans and now moves up to tackle the 2 Ley brothers and move into the top 5. It won't be long. 30 seconds to go plus a lap into Cafe Corner. Just watch the run that Checkley gets. He gets on the power and just eases past Patrick Ley. Patrick Ley trying to keep Will Checkley on the wet line, but and he does so. He forces Checkley onto the wet line going into Stratford, which means that there's a bit of residual water on the tyres of Checkley's kart as he brakes for Stratford. So that is how Patrick Ley manages to take back that position. But Checkley again now down Hanger Straight will go for the move. There's Zach Parkinson moving past David Darling for 3rd position. And all the 2 Ley brothers, contact there, sibling rivalry as the 2 Ley brothers make side-by-side contact into Wilkins. They manage to keep Checkley behind them, and Checkley has now got Zeromskas on slick tyres coming up to play. Evans is 9th and Ozan rounds out the top 10. Down towards Stratford again. Next time by we'll get the last lap board, but still Will Checkley is understeers into Stratford. That is where both times now James Ley forcing Checkley onto the wet line going into Stratford, and that means that he doesn't have the grip that he needs to come out of the corner and pick up the place. So Checkley having a bit of frustration now, trying to get past the 2 Leys. He's on the inside into Hanger Corner. Now he makes the move. Zeromskas goes through as well in the number 247 kart. Evans also tries to follow through in the number 2 kart and pushing James Ley back to what is 9th position as we start the final lap. David Darling in 4th place now has got 3 drivers directly behind him. 2 of them are on slick tyres. Here comes Checkley and Zeromskas round the outside of Pitts Bend. Checkley on the outside. Oh, Darling. Darling spins. Checkley on the outside line. Wheel-to-wheel contract. They both spin. Darling and Checkley lose ground. That's going to leave the way open for Evans, for Patrick Ley, and for the number 277 of Paul Ozan. The checkered flag has come out though. Matthew Pierce wins by 10 seconds. Faulkner comes across the line in 2nd, and he has absolutely cooked those wet tyres. 3rd will be Parkinson. 4th will be Zeromskas on slicks. 5th for Patrick Ley. Will Checkley comes home in 6th. And then we wait for Richard Evans in 7th. James Ley is 8th. Ozan is 9th. David Darling rounds out the top 10. Oh, that's unfortunate. He was I don't think he was expecting Will Checkley to try and go around the outside line for Stratford on that last corner. And Watton, we're now got a couple of cards that need to be retrieved. But it's Pierce, Faulkner, Parkinson, Zeromskas, Ley, Checkley, Evans, James Ley in 8th, Ozan, Darling the top 10, Watt, Stansfield, Lawrence, Cole, Stanley, Elaine and Massarella. Your finishers, we had a non-starter, of course, with unfortunate Lewis Berry. So let's go down and see if we can catch up with 1 or 2 of the protagonists as the first round of heats finishes, and we prepare for Heat 2 in DRS 62. So here we are. There's just catching up as the victorious Matt Pierce comes through scrutineering. Well, Matt, you gambled and it paid off. What a result.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. It's really hard to predict when you're in that crossover period. So yeah, rolled the dice, started quite close to the back, so I thought why not. But paid off.
It paid off, and again, you had a couple of extra rolling laps to help as much as one driver struggling to get off the grid. Did that help? Because every second counts when the conditions are changing like that, and you're on slick tyres.
Yeah, well, when you first go out, that's the first time you actually have a sense of what the track's like. So on the rolling up laps, I was a bit like, don't know if this is quite right yet. You're in the crossover period, but luckily the sun stayed out, which just dried it up. Down the end, still tricky, but apart from that, it's dry.
Okay, well, the DRS62 drivers are out next. I think a lot of them will be on slick tyres, but we'll try and have a quick chat with Sam Faulkner in the number 1 plate car. You can see, now, have a look there. That is what a set of fully cooked wet tyres looks like. They're not used for much now, apart from to go in the skip. Sam, I mean, it's just a case of hanging on, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the best of a bad scenario, really. The ones on slicks made the right decision. As soon as we went out, I realised we made the wrong one, because only the hairpin that was a bit wet, and everyone else was bone dry, so shame we've ruined a set of wets, but did the best of a bad situation, I think. So.
Yeah, and I mean, there was other drivers coming through on slick tyres as well, so a case of once Matt went past, was it just trying to keep as much temperature out of those tyres, to keep them as cool as possible, and just to keep checking behind you and not lose any more places, really?
Yeah, I think luckily the other slip runners took a bit longer to get through the field, so I think a few more laps they'd have caught up, but the race was short enough that I didn't manage to get enough of a gap while it was still wet enough that only Matt was able to catch me and then pull about 10 seconds. But yeah, it's not a bad result considering best wets runner, so it's not bad.
Not bad indeed. Well done, Sam. So let's go and have a little check on some of the runners out on the grid now. The DRS62 class is up next, and the sun is shining. I would imagine that most, if not all of them, will be on slick tyres. Let's go and see what the youngest drivers in the field have got to say.